Hey guys, what's up? It's Eli here, and today we are going to be comparing the Tamron 11 to 20mm 2.8, the Sony 10 to 18 f4, and the Sigma 1614. The first category we're going to be addressing is the build quality and weight. Now the 10 to 18 comes in at the lightest at 225 grams, and the Tamron is the second lightest, coming in at 335 grams, and the Sigma is the heaviest, coming in at 405 grams. Alright, now moving on to the price category, the cheapest lens out of the three of them is the Sigma 16. It comes in at $400, and used you can find it around $315 to $330 if you're lucky. Now, it's the cheapest mainly because it's a prime lens and the other ones are zooms, but it is also a good thing to note is that it is almost 3 years old now. It came out in late 2017, I'm pretty sure it was November to be exact. Now moving on to the second cheapest, it's the Tamron 11 to 20 2.8. Now this came out in June, so brand new, last month, just came out. Comes in at $829. Now you cannot find this used for cheaper really because it just came out. And the Sony 10 to 18 is the most expensive, coming in at $898. Now, a very important thing to note with this is the lens came out in 2013, so this lens is almost 8.5 years old. As a very old lens. Now you can find it used for a lot cheaper than this, so we will say this is technically the second most expensive lens, because if you are buying this lens, I do not recommend you buy it new. Now B&H even has it for $673 here used, but you can find it used for really around $500. That wouldn't be a bad deal. So we're going to call this lens 500, the Sigma is 400, and the Tamron is 800. And now a little bit about the build quality of each of the lenses. The Sigma is built out of metal and has a rubber focusing ring, while the other two lenses are built out of a high quality plastic. The Tamron feels a lot better in hand than the Sony. The Sony definitely feels the worst out of all three of them in hand, and the zoom on it is worse than the Tamron's, which is not the best. It bottoms out a little too quickly, and it's smooth while you're zooming in the middle, but once you hit the 20 and the 11, it just bottoms out and it does not sound good at all. Now the Sigma is built in 16 elements in 13 groups, featuring their low dispersion elements and their spherical lens elements. They have 3 of their FLD elements, and they have 2 of their SLD elements, which are their low dispersions by themselves. The Tamron lens is made in 12 elements in 10 groups, featuring one of their XLD or their extra low dispersion elements. They have 2 of their molded glass spherical elements, and they have 2 of their low dispersion elements. Now, Tamron also claims to have a fluorine coating on the outside, which is supposed to help protect and repel oil. And the 10 to 18 features 10 elements in 8 groups, featuring 3 spherical elements and 1 super ED element. Now all 3 of these lenses claim to be splash proof and dust and moisture resistant. Now in my testing it was very light, but the Sigma and the Tamron both did the best, and their rubber gasket that is on the lens element seems to work the best. Now moving on to arguably the most important part of the lens, we are going on to sharpness. Now I took pictures of the same time, same setting, all wide open as they can be, and we are going to be looking at sharpness. So as you can see, this is edge sharpness, and we have text there, which is going to make it easier to compare them. So up first we have the 11 to 20 2.8 at 16 millimeters at 2.8 at 1/2000 of a second, and that text is extremely clear. The image is extremely sharp. This is tack sharp. I love this lens. I have never had an issue with it in my testing with it not being sharp. Now this next lens is the 10 to 18. This is clearly not as sharp. This is at f4 16 millimeters. This lens is just not anywhere near the other two in sharpness. I did not find that I had many sharp images. They come out extremely soft. The center sharpness is not bad, but it's just nothing comparable to the other two. Now moving on to the Sigma 16, this picture, as you can see, there is chromatic aberration. I will point that out later and I'll talk about it, but this lens is still a lot sharper than the 10 to 18. As you can see, the text is easily readable and it's just a lot sharper than the 10 to 18, but the chromatic aberration does seem to distract you from that. And now we're going to be looking at all of these lenses stopped down a little bit. So now we have the 11 to 20 at 6.3 at 11 millimeters. And you can see it is still extremely sharp, sharper than it was at 2.8, but it is actually not that much of a noticeable difference. Coming down now to the 10 to 18, we have it at f8. Now this is in another scenario where it is actually pretty sharp on the edges. It is still not as sharp, but it is actually usable. Now, I've seen a lot of things where the images just come out way too soft, and that is why people tell you not to buy this lens. Now, that is mainly because of how old it is, and technology has just improved so much. And then we have the Sigma 16 stop down to f4. Now, it can be sharper at f4.5, but I actually did not get a picture at f4.5 or 5.6, unfortunately, so that is my bad. But it is still sharper, a lot sharper than the 10 to 18, and it is still not as good as the 11 to 20. So for the sharpness category, I definitely have to give it to the 11 to 20. This lens is extremely sharp. Sigma comes in second, still extremely sharp, and I would not recommend the 10 to 18. I actually had to throw away a couple images that were going to go in this comparison because they were not as sharp. They were just way too soft to be used. Now, one last thing before we move on to a quick vlog test, and then I will show a bunch of images from each of the cameras so you can have your own opinions on which one you think ends up looking the best. I want to talk about the minimum focusing distance. Now, the Sigmas and the Tamrons is clearly better than the 10 to 18s. You will never get a good macro shot with the 10 to 18, and I can guarantee that. Now, with the Sigma, you can get decently close, but with the Tamron, you can get extremely close. The object that you're photographing will touch your lens before it does not allow focusing. It is absolutely insane, and it makes it extremely fun to use just going around and taking macro shots with it because, like I said, you can get extremely close. I ended up getting pollen on my lens because I did not realize how close I was to the flower. Obviously, that came right off. But another thing to point out is with the Sigma 16, you can hear the focusing. Now, I will play that right now. So as you can hear the Sigma 16 focusing. The other two are completely silent for the most part, except for the 10 to 18 occasionally makes noise. Now, I found it weird. It did not make noise in some scenarios, but in others it did when it should have. Now we're going to move on to a quick vlog test. Hey guys, so this is the vlog test for the 11 to 20, and currently we are at 20 millimeters, arm's distance out, and I'm trying to hold it as steady as I can because there is no lens stabilization, and I am not using camera stabilization in body because the A6300 does not have it. And we are at f2.8 right now, shutter speed's 1/100, and ISO 100. Now, if we go all the way out to 11 millimeters, this is 11. Again, I'm holding it as steady as I can because there is no stabilization. But overall, I think this will be a very solid option other than the fact that it has no stabilization built in. Alright, so now we are on the Sigma 16. We are at 1.4 because this lens allows it, and I love the bokeh that you get from this. The background blur is awesome, and we are at 1/250. Now again, no image stabilization on this lens, so it is going to be a bit shaky, especially because I am walking on grass right now that is uneven. Now, if you're walking around normally on something flat, it won't be as bad, but it will still be there, the shakes, and yeah. Alright, so now we are on the 10 to 18 f4. Now, one thing about this lens first, right off the bat, we are at 18 millimeters, but we did have to go down to ISO 200 because of that f4. Now, it is not the brightest day out, it is overcast right now, and it definitely hurts having only f4, and especially because you get no depth of field with the background blur. Now, if we go all the way out to 10 millimeters, this is what it looks like. We are again arm's length out at 10 millimeters. Now, this lens is going to be somewhat decent for vlogging because of the optical steady shot, but I do think it will fall apart in image quality in comparison to the other two. This is what I would consider to be the most ideal vlogging setup. I have the 11 to 20 on a Ronin SC. Now, I love the background blur that you get from the Sigma 16, but I think the versatility with having the ability to go all the way out to 11 millimeters is well worth it. I think that what you get from this is a lot better than any of the other options, and with the stabilization, it just makes it that much better. Turns out I never filmed an outro. Well, here it is. So, thank you guys for watching and making it through this whole video. If you have any questions, please make sure to leave them down in the comments and I will respond. Sorry for not uploading in a while. This video did take a while to make. Now, please go buy yourself the Tamron or the Sigma and not the 10-18. Now, the Sigma is clearly meant for portrait or astro or anything like that, in consideration with the 11-20 being out, unless you don't have the budget to go to the 11-20. But the 11-20 is clearly the better all-around lens, so that is my recommendation. If you're looking for an ultra-wide for Sony E-mount APS-C, I would go ahead and buy yourself that. Please make sure to keep a lookout. I'm going to be uploading 2 more in-depth reviews comparing each of these lenses to the 11-20, telling you which is right for you. But a quick overview, like I said, if you're into portraits or astro, do not get the 10-18. I would go for the 11 or the Sigma 16. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.